Before she became one of Hollywood's most iconic and controversial stars, Ingrid Bergman was simply a lonely, quiet girl in Stockholm, orphaned before she even became a teenager. Born on August 29, 1915, she lost her mother at just 3 years old, and by 12, her beloved father, a photographer who had sparked her passion for performance, was gone too. Shy, uncertain, and surrounded by distant relatives, Ingrid found refuge not in family, but in fantasy. The stage became her escape, and acting became her salvation. Beneath her gentle demeanor burned a quiet fire, a rare ability to channel raw, powerful emotion that would eventually captivate the world. With every role, she stepped further from sorrow and closer to destiny. And in her later memoir, she would confess everything: the affairs, the pain, the passion, and one unforgettable man so overwhelming, she could only describe him with 2 words: he was massive. Ingrid Bergman's path to stardom didn't begin in Hollywood, it began on the hallowed stages of Sweden's Royal Dramatic Theatre School, the same institution that once shaped the legendary Greta Garbo. Even among the talented, Bergman stood apart. Her raw, luminous presence and deeply natural acting style drew early acclaim in Swedish cinema, where she quickly built a name for herself. But it was her unforgettable role in the 1936 film Intermezzo that changed everything. Her quiet strength and emotional depth leapt off the screen, and Hollywood took notice. By 1939, Ingrid was on a ship to America, personally invited by producer David O. Selznick to star in the American remake of Intermezzo, opposite Leslie Howard. She arrived with no English, no fanfare, and no Hollywood polish, just talent. But that was all she needed. With her soft-spoken voice, graceful accent, and unaffected beauty, she was unlike anything the industry had seen. At a time when most actresses were manufactured glamour and dramatic flair, Ingrid brought sincerity, and audiences were spellbound. Practically overnight, she became one of the most sought-after actresses of the 1940s, a symbol of purity and elegance who would soon shake the very foundation of Hollywood's image of perfection. Ingrid Bergman's rise was nothing short of meteoric, a luminous ascent that lit up the golden age of Hollywood. Within just a few years of arriving in America, she delivered one unforgettable performance after another, each film cementing her place among cinema's greatest legends. Her most iconic role came in 1942, when she starred opposite Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. As Ilsa Lund, the woman torn between past love and present duty, Bergman brought a quiet heartbreak to the screen that has echoed through generations. Her face, radiant, mournful, and conflicted, captured in the soft shadows of Rick's Café, became one of the most enduring images in film history. It wasn't just a performance, it was a moment, one that defined not only the film, but a new standard of screen acting. By the mid-1940s, Bergman wasn't just a star, she was the soul of serious cinema. In 1944, she earned her first Academy Award for Best Actress in Gaslight, portraying a woman on the brink of madness with chilling realism. Her portrayal of psychological torment was so raw, so authentic, that it reshaped how female vulnerability was depicted in film. She followed this with a powerhouse performance in Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, 1946, where she starred opposite Cary Grant in a sultry and suspenseful tale of espionage and emotional danger. Bergman's ability to merge strength with fragility, poise with inner turmoil, made her not just admired, but unforgettable. She once again showed that she can control the screen with grace and honesty. She followed her love and moved to Italy, where she worked with Rossellini on a number of neo-realist movies, such as Stromboli 1950, Europa 51, and Journey to Italy. Even though these movies weren't big hits at the time, they are now known for how they changed modern movies and how daringly they tried new things. Bergman got her second Academy Award for her role in Anastasia in 1956, which marked her triumphant return to American movies after living abroad for a while. This time, a sign. Welcome back from the business world that used to avoid her. She kept acting in European and American movies, proving over and over that she was one of the most versatile and fearless actresses of her time. She also became famous on stage and on TV, including for her Emmy-winning role as Israeli Prime Minister Golder in A Woman Called Gula. During her career, Ingrid Bergman was nominated for 7 Academy Awards and won 3 of them. She also won 2 Emmy Awards, a Tony Award, and a lot of other awards. She was able to speak 5 languages and worked with some of the best directors of the 20th century, such as Sidney Lumet, Ingmar Bergman, not related, and Alfred Hitchcock. Although she received many awards, it was her truthfulness and quiet dignity that made people of all ages love her. Margaret Bergman was a brave woman who played and lived her life without letting the narrow expectations of her time hold her back. Even when scandal threatened to overshadow her achievements, she never gave up her honor or her devotion to what she does in her personal life. She went through deep highs and painful lows, including marriage, divorce, motherhood, and illness. But she handled them all with amazing calm. Ingrid Bergman was a famous Swedish actor who was known for being beautiful and talented. She married Peter Aron Lindström for the first time in 1937. As a neurosurgeon, Lindström was a respected medical professional who lived in a very different world from the one that Bergman lived in, which was full of the glitz and glamour of Hollywood and foreign movies. The fact that Bergman's rising fame and growing involvement in the movie business made her life seem stable and normal. Together, Ingrid and Peter Lindström had a daughter named Pia Lindström in 1938. She went on to become a famous TV reporter and news anchor. The couple seemed to have a normal family life, but their relationship finally got worse because of Bergman's demanding job and the personal problems she was having as she got older and more widely well known. It was a big change in Ingrid Bergman's life when she started dating the Italian director Roberto Rossellini in the late 1940s. Rossellini was an important and well-known director who is best known for starting Italian neo-realist film. They started seeing each other while Bergman was still married to Lindström, which caused a lot of controversy at the time. This relationship was intense and controversial because it went against what most people think should happen in relationships. Marriage and being faithful. A girl named Isabella Rossellini was born to Bergman and Rossellini in 1952. The affair became public after that. The birth of this child caused a big rift in Bergman's personal life and led to a lot of media attention and public discussion. Ingrid Bergman and Peter Lindström were married for 13 years before they got a divorce in 1950, after Isabella was born. Soon after, Bergman and Rossellini made their relationship official by getting married in Mexico. When they got married, Bergman's life changed in a deep way. Connected to Rossellini's film style and Italian culture, they had 2 more children together. Ingrid Rossellini was born in 1956 and Roberto Ingmar Rossellini was born in 1954. Even though they worked together on artistic projects and their family grew, their marriage had many problems, such as professional pressures, cultural differences, and a lot of public attention after their earlier scandal. In the end, Bergman and Rossellini got a divorce in 1957, ending a complicated and important relationship that had left an indelible mark on both their personal and film backgrounds. In 1958, just a year after her divorce from Rossellini, Ingrid Bergman married Lars Schmidt, a Swedish theater businessman and impresario. Schmidt helped promote Bergman's plays in Europe, and their relationship gave her a more stable and private place to live after years of public trouble. From 1958 to 1975, they were married for almost 20 years. Bergman was able to balance her work life with her home life at this time. Support for Schmidt's commitment to the arts and his work as a theater manager, but, like many long marriages, they ended in divorce, which closed another chapter in Ingrid Bergman's complicated and multifaceted personal life. When she wrote about Gregory Peck in her memoir, she didn't just talk about how tall he was, though that was memorable in and of itself. She said, he was massive, which meant a lot more than just her height or broad shoulders. That sentence was full of awe and respect, and it almost sounded like a confession, like she was remembering a presence that had once been too much for her to handle. Gregory Peck was the perfect example of a classic Hollywood man when it came to looks. His commanding height made him stand out from most of his peers, and it often left a lasting impact on both audiences and co-stars. Bergman had worked with stars like Humphrey Bogart and Cary Grant on film sets all over the world, but she was still struck by how present Peck was as soon as she saw him. Showed up on a set. She wrote that he didn't go into a room but filled it. His body was statuesque and almost Roman in its grandeur, but it was never scary. His posture was soft, and his moves were graceful, which took away from the rough strength that his body showed. But Bergman also meant his soul when she said, massive. Peck's moral compass, his quiet determination, and the deep honesty with which he lived his life all added up to something huge. She remembered that he had a weight about him that made her feel like the air was listening. When he talked, she talked about how he could make you feel like your words were very important even in the most boring talks. You couldn't lie to him, she admitted. His eyes saw right through you, and it made you want to be honest. When they worked together on and off screen, there was a tension between professional respect and a strong, silent attraction. Bergman said, "There were times when I'd look at him across the stage and I would forget my lines not because I was nervous, but because I was genuinely transported by the man before me." It wasn't lust she was talking about, it was reverence, a kind of emotional surrender to someone who seemed carved out of something timeless. Bergman also talked about how Peck had to deal with his fame. In a world where vanity was a survival skill, she wrote, Gregory stayed rooted. He never needed to be the loudest voice in the room, she said. His silence often said more than 100 speeches. She saw that he was serious about his parts not because he wanted the praise, but because he saw them as a way to tell the truth, even if they were made up. His idea of goodness wasn't the soft kind, it was the kind you fight for scene after scene. Bergman wrote in her autobiography that working with Gregory Peck made her feel challenged, seen and changed. In the end she thought about him not only as an actor but also as a woman. Greatness isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Gregory was present in the deepest, most magnificent way. When she wrote, he was massive, it wasn't a throwaway phrase or a tabloid story. He was so big that he touched her in more ways than she could have imagined, physically, mentally, artistically, and spiritually. During the run of the Bergman's life took a dramatic and unexpected turn in London in the early 1970s while she was filming Constant Wife. During this time, she was still ruling stages with the same charisma that had made her famous in movies. That's when she noticed a strange physical change, a hard lump under her left breast. Even though Bergman was busy with performances, she quickly took action because she is known for being very disciplined and paying close attention to detail. On June 15, 1974, she had surgery at a private clinic in London to get rid of the lump. The surgery was pretty quiet, but it was the start of a long and hard battle with breast cancer that she chose to fight with grace, courage, and a strong dedication to her work. But the cancer wasn't done with her yet. Years later, she was deeply involved in the emotionally taxing shooting of Autumn Sonata, which would become one of her most powerful and praised roles. Bergman felt the scary lump again. With this second find, pushed her to return to London right away, where she had yet another surgery. The event was especially meaningful. Even though she had a disease that would kill her soon, she gave one of the most honest, complex, and open performances of her career under the direction of Ingmar Bergman in a part that seemed to reflect the hard times she was going through in real life. Bergman refused to let her illness define or limit her, and she started working on Waters of the Moon right away after surgery and rehab. This shows how strong she is and how hard she works. Bergman kept taking on important parts even though her illness was getting worse. One of the most important roles of her late career was as Israeli Prime Minister Gold Meir in the 1981 TV movie A Woman Called Gold. It was a brave and deeply moving move. Bergman was weak now, and treatments and time had changed her face. But she played Meir with great power and honor. It was very hard on her health to be on set all the time. That being said, she finished the project in a typical being professional. The act earned her the posthumous Emmy and Golden Globe Awards, which were the last word on her legendary status in the theatre world. After this, Bergman left the public stage and went to her London flat in the fancy Cheney Gardens neighbourhood, which is near the Thames. The area was known for being a peaceful place for artists to live, but for Bergman, it became a place of loneliness and quiet struggle. There she started out present process normal chemotherapy remedies. The as soon as radiant celebrity who had captivated hundreds of thousands now confronted the disease with a quiet stoicism. Paparazzi and fanatics regularly accrued out of doors, her constructing tenting at the pavement in hopes of a glimpse of the mythical actress, aware of their presence however unwilling to permit them to see her weakened nation. She avoided the front window. The illness had now ravaged her frame, the most cancers had metastasized to her spine, collapsing her 12th vertebrae, causing her awesome pain and limiting her mobility. Her proper lung had ceased functioning entirely, and simplest a component of her left lung remained operational, yet even in those darkest days she never surrendered her inner energy. Ingrid Bergman handed away in London just after midnight on August 29, 1982. Poignantly on her 67th birthday, her dying got here peacefully surrounded through humans she cherished, her ex-husband, the Swedish theatrical manufacturer Lars Schmidt, with whom she had remained on heat and affectionate phrases changed into at her bedside alongside 3 others that nighttime hours earlier than her passing they'd shared a very last toast in her honor, an intimate and symbolic gesture full of bittersweet birthday celebration and approaching loss. By way of her bedside turned into a copy of The Little Prince, the philosophical novella by means of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the book cherished by means of Bergman for its themes of innocence, loss and the unseen essence of factors, lay open to a page near the end, possibly a final quiet reflection of her soul's journey. Her memorial service happened in October at the historical St. Martin in the Fields Church in London. It became a solemn, elegant affair attended by 200 mourners from all corners of the sector. Among them were her 3 children, such as Isabella Rossellini, who had already started making her very own mark in movie, the extended Rossellini-owned family and household, who had flown in from Sweden to mention goodbye to considered one of their brightest stars. The provider additionally drew an extraordinary assembly of luminaries from the performing arts, distinguished actors and lifetime colleagues, together with Liv Ullmann, Sir John Gielgud, Dame Wendy Hiller, Birgit Nielsen and Joss Ackland have been all gift, each paying tribute in their very own silent ways. Passages from Shakespeare have been studied aloud in the course of the service, echoing Bergman's deep roots in classical theater. Musical picks protected the playful tune This Old Guy, famously featured within the motel of the Sixth Happiness, and the hauntingly nostalgic As Time Is Going, by way of immortalized with the aid of Bergman's personal voice in Casablanca, a track that seemed to encapsulate the arc of her life and profession. Her grandson Justin Daly later recalled the overwhelming chaos and emotion of that day. Hundreds of photographers swarmed the web page, jockeying for function flashing cameras. As mourners tried to grieve, Daly remembered being struck on the top through a digicam inside the frenzy. However, amid the ache and confusion, he skilled a surprising profound realization that Ingrid Bergman was no longer just his grandmother in the center of all this chaos. He stated, "I ought to experience that she wasn't just my grandmother, she belonged to everyone else, she belonged to the arena." It was a sentiment shared by hundreds of thousands. Ingrid Bergman became no longer handiest a mom, a grandmother or a chum. She became an icon whose artistry, bravery and humanity had touched every nook of the globe.